Hi, I'm Brent Stafford, and this is RegWatch by RegulatorWatch.com. We're picking up here from a burned live stream that we were just doing with Dr. Michael Siegel from Boston University School of Public Health. Mike, thanks for coming back on RegWatch.
Sure, my pleasure.
And thank you very much for putting up with that debacle of the live stream. I wish I knew why. I have a feeling there's anti-vaping people out there that are responsible for it. So let's just do something very quick and hard. I want you to do most of the talking. Let's get right to where we were going. And that is there a possibility that the CDC is purposefully trying to obfuscate, confuse and confound e-cigarettes and vaping with the illicit THC products? Do you think that's the case?
I think that's exactly what they're doing. And I think that it's very clear that that's what they're doing. And the most telling, there are two things that I think are the most telling. The first is that there's been a split between the FDA and the CDC. And the FDA is giving a completely different message. The FDA is basically telling the truth. And they're saying, look, do not use illicit THC vape carts, period. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. On the other hand, the CDC continues to say, don't vape anything. And every time they mention the fact that THC was found in a lot of these cases, they immediately downplay it and say, well, no single device, no single product has been identified. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that if you look very carefully at the clinician's warning that the CDC put out. So basically what happens is the CDC puts out a warning to the public, but they also put out a warning to physicians, to health practitioners. And in the advice that they gave to the health practitioners, it basically outlines exactly what they're supposed to do if patients come into the hospital with these symptoms. And among the recommendations were things like, make sure to report this to us, make sure to ask the patient what they've been vaping, try to get samples from them of the products that they've been vaping. The one thing that it doesn't say, which I think is a glaring omission, is nowhere does it advise that these patients be tested for THC. There's a very simple urine test that can be done that detects THC. And it will, if somebody's a heavy user, it can detect it for 4 to 6 weeks after they stop using. So most of these cases have been pretty heavy users, and so you would be able to detect that. And the reason this is so critical is that so many youth, as we I mentioned before, are not going to be upfront about using THC off the street. And so the only way to really know for sure what they're using is to test them. And the fact that the CDC is not doing that, is not recommending that, tells me that they actually don't really want to know. Because if they really wanted to know, they would absolutely be demanding that these patients be tested. By not recommending that they be tested, they're actually ensuring that we're not going to be able to tie every case to THC. And in fact, that will leave the door open for them to be able to say, okay, well, not all the patients were using THC. And then that allows them to say, so we think that traditional e-cigarettes may still be involved. So I honestly think that they really are doing this intentionally to leave the door open so that they can continue to demonize electronic cigarettes.
Now, that's got to be just pure corruption, right? How else could you explain it? It's the CDC. Is their job not to test to find out what causes illnesses like we're seeing here?
So, I mean, the CDC doesn't do testing itself, but it makes the recommendations for clinicians who would do the testing. And it's not recommending that patients be tested. It does not say anything about testing patients for THC. And again, that tells me that they actually don't want these patients tested. I think they actually are trying to preserve they're trying to make sure that not all these cases get pinned on THC to leave the door open so that they can demonize e-cigarettes. And I think it's Is it corruption? I think it's a bias. I think it's a really strong bias that the CDC has shown from the very beginning against electronic cigarettes. I think that they are just unable to accept the idea that any person using nicotine, especially if they're using it in a way that looks like smoking, could actually be doing something good for their health. That's just not a concept they can accept. But I'm not going to let them off the hook so easily, simply because we're talking about people dying. We're talking about people getting very, very sick. If this were just the usual debate that we were having, a month ago about e-cigarettes as a harm reduction product, I still think that their demonization of these products is unreasonable and uncalled for, but it's not an immediate life and death situation. It's a much more longer term health situation. But this is an immediate life and death situation, and the CDC has been called in to try to get to the bottom of this outbreak and to prevent further cases. I mean, the number one purpose of doing a disease investigation is not just to find out what it is out of curiosity. The purpose is to try to find out what it is so we can prevent further cases, and to put a warning out as soon as you have an idea what it is, so that future people will not be doing will not take that same risk.
Is it possible, do you think, that in between the time when these cases first started popping up and reaching the attention of CDC, do you think that some people may have gotten sick that didn't need to get sick because there wasn't a warning, a proper warning in place?
Absolutely. I don't think there's any question that there are young people out there who are not taking action because this warning is so general. They just hear "don't vape," and they're not going to take that seriously. If the CDC were to unequivocally come out with a warning and say, absolutely do not use THC vape carts that you buy off the street, period. If they were just to say that unequivocally, I think young people would take that seriously. And it would prevent a number of these cases. So to me, that's the real tragedy here, is that this bias is, it's not just that they're now kind of poo-pooing the idea of harm reduction. They're actually hiding from the public the real cause, at least the predominant cause of this terrible outbreak. And because of that failure to warn, and because, in fact, they're undermining the messages that the FDA is giving, they are actually preventing youth from taking this seriously, and I think they're going to cause more cases than would have been necessary.
And it's not just the youth, obviously, as the target, but we have an entire major mainstream media infrastructure that seems to be dancing with joy over covering this. My thoughts is that the actual people at CDC and the people at Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids and Truth Initiative and so forth probably are feeling a certain measure of glee, as sick as that is. So you have glee on the pressure groups and public health groups that are treacherous. The CDC is being treacherous, and that's what I mean by corruption, treachery. And you've got the mainstream media dancing for joy to cover the story.
So, I think that although I understand that the media, has a certain responsibility, I'm a public health practitioner. And so, it's our job to protect the public's health. I don't view the media's job as protecting the public's health. I think their job is to accurately portray what health authorities tell them. And, to their credit, they're doing that. They're accurately reporting what the CDC is saying. And, maybe that, that it makes for better stories for them, fine. But the point is, it's coming from the CDC. This is not a case where the media is somehow distorting what the CDC is saying. And what's most disturbing to me is that this is now trickling down from the CDC to all of the state health departments. The state health departments are now reiterating exactly what the CDC is saying. And then local health departments are reiterating what the state health departments are saying. And so there's this message that is literally coming across the entire spectrum of public health authorities to the public that is basically saying, we can't help you. There's nothing we know about this. It's a huge mystery. We have no idea what's causing it. It has something to do with vaping. So if you're really concerned about your health, just don't vape. And that's not a helpful message. It's not a message that's going to be actionable. It's not a message that's accurate. And it's a message that's downplaying, if not completely ignoring the fact that we actually do know to a great extent and to a great degree of specificity what's causing this. I mean, there are samples from the lungs of affected patients which have oil in them. Basically, their lungs are covered in oil and they're filled with oil and they cannot get rid of it. And that's going to cause respiratory failure. There's a well-recognized disease called lipoid pneumonia, which has been diagnosed in a large number of these patients. That's not a mystery. We know that lipoid pneumonia is caused by the inhalation of oils. Mineral oil inhalation, for example, has caused cases of lipoid pneumonia. So we actually know quite a lot about what's going on. There was also vitamin E oil that was detected in many of the samples. In fact, my understanding is that every single sample from the state of New York that was tested was positive for vitamin E oil. And so we have a much clearer picture of what's going on here. It really appears that there is some sort of new cutting agent that's being used to distill or to dilute the THC concentrates, and that it is an oil-based diluent that is just not something that should be inhaled, period. And so, that's a lot of information. I mean, there are a lot of disease outbreaks where we actually have less than that. So given what we know now, I think that the pieces of the puzzle are starting to fit together. Yet the CDC is still completely ignoring that, and they're undermining the message that the public needs to hear.
So you described basically a snowball effect in a feedback loop that was running between CDC, state health departments. Then you've also got the state politicians too as well. We saw a case there with Governor Cuomo rescinded, I guess, or overruled Department of Health officials, his own health officials. What happened there?
Well, on Friday, the New York Department of Health issued a, I think, very responsible warning in which they basically said, look, we've had these cases of lung disease, and all of them, in every patient, we found that they were using THC from the black market, and they've issued a clear warning saying, do not use THC purchased off the black market. On Monday, the Governor Cuomo, basically came in and said, forced the health department to issue a new warning that instead said, don't vape, don't use any vaping product, and that essentially downplayed the connection with THC products, and hardly even mentioned that at all. And I know that the health department kind of signed their name to it, but it's pretty clear that they were forced to do so by the governor. So this is, that's inexcusable. Here we have a politician essentially overruling health officials in his administration. And that's a sign that this is all about politics and not health, and not the public's health. If there was
we saw the First Lady too come out today with a full statement regarding e-cigarettes as well.
Yeah, and I think that the worst thing that's happening. So I mean, as if it weren't bad enough that we're not giving the proper warning that people need to avoid the cause of this, and we're going to see more cases than we would have otherwise had if these health agencies, especially CDC, were acting responsibly. There's another really terrible consequence which is happening, which is that this outbreak is causing a lot of politicians and policymakers to start proposing or even adopting bans on e-cigarettes. So we've already seen the governor of Michigan, spurred on by the CDC's information or lack of information, has actually, through an executive order process, banned the sale of electronic cigarettes, flavored electronic cigarettes, which is almost all of them in the state of Michigan. And now Governor Cuomo today announced that he is going to seek a ban on flavored electronic cigarettes. And the state of Delaware announced today that they're going to seek a ban on flavored electronic cigarettes. And this is just going to continue to spread. And so there's a huge amount of collateral damage that's going to be done if these laws are put into effect, because not only are we going to have not only is this going to have nothing to do with the outbreak, and is the outbreak going to get worse, but now we're going to have a ton of smokers who are now a ton of ex-smokers who are actually going to go back to smoking. When these products come off the shelves, they're not going to go drive, 2-3 hours to another state to buy their vaping products. They're going to basically just say that the heck with it, I'm just going to go back to smoking.
They will smoke out of spite, I swear.
I think a lot of them will. And those who don't, those who are really, so concerned about their health and they're absolutely committed that they're not going to go back to smoking, what they're going to do is they're going to go to the black market. And so what's essentially going to happen in these states is you're going to have a black market created where there wasn't one before. And it's incredibly ironic because as of May 2020, the sale of electronic cigarettes in every state will officially be regulated by the FDA. As of May 2020, the FDA will have jurisdiction over every e-cigarette product and can deny the ability of any product it wants to be sold. So we'll have complete regulation of all e-cigarette products, except in the state of Michigan, because they will have banned e-cigarettes. So the only e-cigarettes which will be on their market will be contraband products, black market products. And except in the state of New York, if they end up passing this law, or any other states that end up banning flavored e-cigarettes, those will be the only states in which the e-cigarettes on the market are not regulated. And that's an incredible irony, because the whole point of doing this is to try to ensure that the products being sold are safe. And now the states that are passing these bans are going to create a black market, which is going to ensure that we actually can't vouch for the safety of these products. And once you open up a black market, anybody can start selling them.
All right. I wanted to make sure I got this question in. To date, Dr. Siegel, it's been difficult to find, a whole huge, football team size of public health officials that are all there running and charging on behalf of vaping. Not everyone is like you and our good friends in the UK and others too as well in Canada and the US, but it's a small group. And since we've been covering this story, one of the stories we've been covering is the Continental Divide in public health. It's that huge chasm between one side and the other on public health that has allowed the pressure groups and everybody else to kind of drive in and increase that wedge. I wonder if part of the thing that is happening here is trying to make it much more difficult for people like you and others that have been supporting vaping to continue to do so vocally, because of course they've brought this social justice virtue aspect to this whole thing now, and it's reached this point where you could really get your head chopped off if you stick it out too high and too far. Are you worried maybe that from the professional side that this thing could take some of the steam away?
Well, I'm not worried because it's already happened. I've already suffered the consequences of having the gall to speak out against the kind of the mainstream thought in the movement, and have been basically kind of ostracized from the tobacco control movement. So at this point, I have nothing to lose. I mean, I've already essentially been cast out from the mainstream of the movement, and I think that I think that's part of the way the movement operates, is that there's almost a religious quality to it, and if you're a dissenter, if you don't believe, you're really not a true believer. You're not really truly part of the movement, and there's not a lot of room for dissent. I'll just give you one example. I was asked to speak at a conference, at a press conference at the National Press Club, to talk about this issue. And I was asked to be on a panel, and I agreed. The American the American Lung Association was also asked to speak on the panel. And when they found out that I was going to be on the panel, they refused to participate if I was going to be on the panel. And in fact, the organizer decided that it was too important to have that they needed to have the American Lung Association there. So I was kicked off the panel. So they're not even willing to talk to anyone, even, someone, an expert from within the public health movement. It's not like I'm with the vaping industry or something where they just objected to having someone with a conflict of interest. I'm a professor, public health professor. I have no conflict of interest. I've never received any money or funding of any kind from the vaping industry. And so, so that's inexcusable. You're basically saying we're not willing to tolerate any kind of dissent.
Yeah. So, Dr. Siegel, where do we go from here? Because a month ago, it was one thing, and we dealt with that, and we were dealing with that, and that was a challenge. 4 weeks later, it seems so much different.
Yeah, unfortunately, right now, I view this as a disaster. I really do. I think this is an impending public health disaster. I think what's happening is disastrous for public health, because what's happening is that the CDC and other anti-tobacco, anti-nicotine groups, I should call them, are basically using this outbreak as an opportunity to further demonize electronic cigarettes in a way that's going to cause policymakers to propose these crazy proposals that make no sense, spurred on by the CDC's rhetoric. And that's going to make it even more difficult for vaping products to be accepted in the United States. And it's going to create severe health problems in terms of smokers, not trying to quit because e-cigarettes are not available, ex-smokers going back to smoking because e-cigarettes are not available, black market developing, and all of the harms that are associated with that. So it's really, I think, just a very devastating situation right now. And it's unfortunate. I was just reading a financial forecast from one of the companies that monitors tobacco stocks, and what they are basically saying is that this scare is actually going to boost cigarette sales. They think that cigarette sales are going to go up to historical levels because of the demonization of electronic cigarettes that's going on now. And obviously, the higher cigarette sales are, the more people are going to die. And so that's the tragedy of this whole thing, is that it's going to actually result in devastating public health consequences.